And now we begin.
This episode of Lords of the Storm is brought to you by our sponsors over at Patreon, where you, yes you, can also support the show. Just head over to patreon.com/Lords of the Storm to become a patron today.
Heroes, gather tribute and earn my favor. What do you say? Are you ready to begin?
What's up, everyone? My name is Greg Concrud Gizmozord Parker, and you're listening to Lords of the Storm.
I'm not laughing at your pain. That was kind of funny.
Lords of the Storm, episode 140, the weekly Heroes of the Storm podcast for you, the true Heroes of the Storm. I'm joined tonight, of course, by the Zord Lords themselves, Mr. Ryan TBK Zord Reader, and Mr. Alpaca Zord Jennington, the Paca. And on this week's episode, Alexstrasza is here. We get a little more news on the new MMR. Nexus lore, maybe, potentially. I don't know. We'll see. And we discussed some multiclass, and Roster Apocalypse is back. Is it? I don't know.
Beginnings.
We'll find out. Yeah. But TBK, sir, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing fairly well. I have miraculously escaped the con crud. I had a few sniffles, but that was it. That was it. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Since I know a lot of people were struck. Yeah. I felt really good, or I feel really good about all the vitamin C I took beforehand.
You know, not last year, I don't remember which year it was, but I didn't get hit until like a week and a half afterwards, and it hit me super hard. But it's also just that time of year. Like I came, like at work right now, everyone is sick. So I'm hoping with me currently being sick that I will avoid that sickness. But we'll see. I don't know. But what have you been up to as far as the video games this week?
Heroes.
What?
And then some Heroes, and then I played some more Heroes, and then I played more Heroes, and then last night I played some Heroes.
Yeah, you had the you streamed Monday. You did some quick match grinding for some loot boxes. Did you get anything good, or did you have to shard it up?
I actually did pick up one of the horse mounts, so that was cool. I picked up another one of the murky skins, so I actually ended up getting almost all of them through loot boxes. What I did not get was a gray mane skin.
Yep.
And so this was actually an incredibly painful Halloween for me because I had to spend 4,400 shards to get the last bit of what I wanted.
Wow.
Which was super painful.
What legendary besides the Greymane did you?
So Greymane was 2,200, so I had to pick my one color that I wanted there, right? And then the Phantom Steed.
Okay, I was close on that.
Or the Spectral Steed or whatever. The green one that has got the transparent cloth. Looks really cool, but it was really expensive. And then I, as soon as this freaking patch came out, I was forced, like I literally had no choice but to spend the last of my shards on the Alarak announcer pack immediately. Like as soon as I launched the game, my mouse actually went of its own free will to the collection, to the voice thing, and clicked buy. I had no control.
I just knew. I picked that up instantly as well. I did all right on the Halloween stuff. So I did not get a Greymane. So I crafted one of those. The Spectral Steed, I almost did, but I sat there and I thought about it. And I was like, this is a cool mount, but whenever I go to pick this, I'm just going to end up picking the horse painted on the bed sheet anyways.
See, yeah, I had similar thoughts. I really did. It almost didn't happen, but I was just like, man, this is really cool looking.
Yeah, it's like if you don't get it now, well, then you gotta wait till next year.
You know, I've been known just a little bit to complain about not having any place to spend money, Blizzard. So I'm probably just gonna buy a butt ton of Christmas loot boxes, just cause, and that'll be my support. Cause honestly, I think Christmas is my favorite in-game holiday, just because I think those are my favorite skins.
Yeah, they are really
like
good.
The skins. Christmas skins are always like super top notch.
They are. Well, myself, I didn't grind it out on Monday just because I had pretty much gotten everything I wanted. I got, I think, one of each skin besides Valera, just because I don't play that much Valera, even though it was a super sweet skin. Other than that, so when you were streaming Monday and grinding it out, I got called out because of Discord. I played a little bit of League of Legends with Mick Montgomery and some people. But I mean, they just made a lot of changes to that game as well with their preseason stuff. So
very Heroes-like changes.
Yes, actually,
but just not as good.
But yeah, so that's what I have been up to. But we have some stuff to talk about this week, and before we hop into that, we did have some patrons last week, and we had one person earn their Zord title. So without further ado.
You have been deemed worthy of bearing the Zord title. Welcome to the Zord Lords.
Stemmed sheep Zord, welcome to the Zord Lords. Because we're all sheep in this world, but if we're going to be a sheep, you want to be a stemmed one, right? I still love that. I love that name.
That's right.
Now let's go ahead.
Thank you for your patronage.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate all of our patrons, yes.
All of our patrons. Now into the news. All right, so last week we had our post-BlizzCon show. We, of course, had our mini BlizzCon episode that Friday night while we were there. But we had so much to talk about. We didn't really have a chance to just kind of recap what, we did or enjoyed in our BlizzCon experiences. So, we'll just take a little bit of time and do that here. First and foremost, for me, what I want to say is, well, I've been catching up on the virtual ticket this week, still watching some stuff. I think we have until like Saturday-ish, maybe Sunday before that goes off. I think it was still 2 weeks again this year, which is too short, Blizzard. It is way too short.
I know. I still have so many things I need to watch and just haven't had time.
Yeah. So from doing that and going to the live panels, TBK, what is your favorite panel that you watched or want to suggest that people make sure to watch in case they have not?
I don't know about watch after the fact necessarily, but it was super, super fun to be at the Heroes Community Gauntlet Live.
Mm-hmm.
It was a brand new panel this year. It was just super fun Heroes stuff. And they did a really, really good job with it. And I'm still super jealous of the custom Heroes computer that they gave away.
Yeah, I need to see pictures of that thing. I didn't get to see it because I showed up a little late.
It was a fully custom Heroes case, and it looked amazing. I'm sure it had awesome specs in it too, but I would just take the case and throw my case away and put everything in that case.
Well, I'm sure what was in the case is probably pretty good too, so I wouldn't throw that stuff away. I would take that as well.
No. I mean, I would take it. If it was in there, I mean, I would take it. But it was a sweet looking case. But yeah, the gauntlet was really cool. I really enjoy every year trying to go to the hero deep dives that they do, just because you get a lot of. I love background stuff. I love the what did we do to get to where we are now type stuff, and see the iteration they went through, because I just love the game development process. And so you get a lot of that in those type of panels.
Yeah, last year's was super cool with Ragnaros, them talking about trying to figure out,
Oh, yeah.
what his trait was going to be and how he was going to work was really neat.
Like he was a movable core at one point. They tried some nutso stuff.
For mine, I will say I've said I think on our pre-BlizzCon episodes, all the voice acting stuff was phenomenal. Killed it again this year. But my number one for people to watch, and I'm pretty sure everyone's a fan of it, most people at least that listen to this show, and I'm wondering if you watched this yet, TBK, was the Carbot live animation.
I have not. It's on my to watch list.
You make sure you watch that before the virtual ticket is up, because it was incredible. The guy is so neat. You can tell he's really nervous at the beginning, because he's up there, he's doing a short little animation, and he wants to answer questions and stuff, and you can tell like when he's typically doing it, he's not talking. So I imagine that's super hard to do on top of being in a crowd of people. So he's taking questions. It's hilarious. You'll go from crying from laughing to crying from just a super touching story that came out of nowhere, hit him off guard, and it's just I don't want spoilers, but it's a really cool story about how content creators and things that they do can have a really large impact on people's lives, and to see that come like face to face out of nowhere was absolutely incredible. And it's just a super cool panel. So definitely make sure to check it out.
I'll move that to the top of my list.
Yeah.
Then.
How about the rest of your BlizzCon though? What's overall your favorite thing this year, and what are you sad about this year, if anything?
Con Before the Storm was super awesome. Like, I mean, they did a great job last year, and they did a really good job this year. They grew a ton, and with that, some logistical challenges happened. But overall, it was really fun to get to do the panel and to get to see just a ton of other content creators and streamers. At the meet and greet, I got to see some of the and meet and say hi to some of the NA Heroes teams that were there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I got to watch a few of the other World of Podcast panels a little bit, which was really, really fun. They always put on just a really amazing event. And so really big kudos to them. The panels were awesome. Getting to do the interview that we had last week, I hope everybody enjoyed that, because I think that was just had a lot of really good, fun information in that. Got to hang out with Thorn and Fist at Disney on Sunday, so that was a lot of fun. Just getting to hang out. Apparently, it's a tradition for a lot of people the Sunday after BlizzCon to go over to Disney and just hang out and do stuff. So I ran into a bunch of other people I knew or people I'd heard of while we were at Disney. Got to just have a really fun day. It was a lot more walking, and to be honest, by the end of the day, I didn't want to walk anymore. There was so much walking because I actually didn't get like the Hilton or Marriott or the close stuff this year. I went for a slightly cheaper option, which meant walking around the hotel, and so it was a little bit of a trek here and there. I definitely got my steps in every day. It's an exhausting few days, but I honestly wouldn't have it any other way unless it was 3 days.
Yeah.
And then I would have it that way. But, it was lots of. I just want to thank everybody who came up to me and said hi and took selfies and talked a little bit. It was super, super fun to meet people who had heard of the show or saw us on the panel or whatever, because I just love seeing and meeting new people. That's one of the best parts of BlizzCon for me. And then all the hero stuff.
Yeah.
It's all the hero stuff. Like esports, I can't get enough of the esports, which was especially true this year because they didn't run over at all.
Yeah.
And so I almost felt like I was deprived of like being there till midnight, being the only group that's there till midnight doing and watching the Heroes esports stuff. So that was always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it was really good year overall.
It was. Yeah, like you said, it was super cool meeting a whole bunch of listeners. So thank you for coming up and saying hi. Comment Before the Storm was excellent. All the panels killed it. And pretty much just reiterating what you said here. But I would say, I guess my, not really a disappointment, but the weirdest thing was just with the HGC. I feel like we really didn't get to catch that much this year. And I guess it's because it ended earlier on these nights. While throughout most of the day we're busy going to the panels and with interviews.
Yeah, I missed a lot of the live stuff on Friday.
Yeah,
a lot of the live esports stuff on Friday.
Yeah, and it felt like we got to see a ton last year, but I think that's just because it went really late into the night both nights. So that it was sad that we didn't get to see that, but at the same time, it was like, well, we have free time, I guess, at BlizzCon. So yeah, it was cool getting to see the closing ceremonies, and I got to see Muse. And for those that didn't watch the closing ceremonies, because a lot don't, at the very end of it, the founders of Blizzard came out, Mike, Paul, and I can't remember the third guy's name. David, maybe?
Sure.
We'll say David. We're going to call him David. From here, he shall be named Dave. Came out and we were talking about, BlizzCon and stuff. And the very last thing they said was, here at Blizzard, we really love exploring all these ideas and, messing around with them. And sometimes those ideas turn into new games. And that's so, a little teaser for next BlizzCon. Maybe not next BlizzCon, but the BlizzCon after. Who knows?
I feel like they're going to announce a new game next BlizzCon.
Well, and the crazy thing is the way he said it, like, toying around with new ideas and stuff and new game almost makes it sound like a new IP entirely and not just like new expansion or something. But who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Got plenty of room on that launcher still.
If they do that and it's another online game where there is a competitive scene whatsoever, there is not a chance they cannot go to 3 days the year after that. Because
I apologize to all you Blizzard people, because I know, but we need 3 days, guys.
Yeah,
we really do. It would. I actually feel like it would be. It would feel a lot less, or I would feel a lot less rushed if it was 3 days, because I feels like it's so go. I feel like if it was 3 days, I'd have a little more time to just sit back and take it all in.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just feeling like I have to run everywhere and be constantly on the go, because otherwise I'll miss something in this super short time span.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, another excellent BlizzCon. And here is to planning for next year. Woo! It's less than a year away now.
Yeah, maybe Multi will come next year.
Hopefully.
Maybe we'll get all of us there.
But it's also right around his baby's first birthday. So he may have trouble getting to a BlizzCon for a couple years to come.
He can go there so that he can get presents.
There we go.
For his kids to bring them back. Yeah, exactly. Go adopt a pet.
Yep. All right. So last week we had mentioned Reddit post where Travis McGeethy went on and was responding to some questions about the new MMR system. Well, there has been another post, and he's responded to more things.
The man is a beast.
He is.
He's a question answering beast, and I love it.
And it was a quick response too. So this was Local Ghost went on, just had some more questions, kind of talking about any changes for planned for uncertainty. If draft and banning is going to be taken into account. Fear that new system is going to promote only maining a few heroes rather than being flexible. More parameters, what parameters are in there, how are they handling stuff, and Travis went on and pretty much knocked them all out, at least as far to an extent as he can. So the uncertainty and stuff he talked about is not going to exist in the same form in this new system. So the core concept of something that limits how much MMR can adjust on a per game basis is there, but the factors that go into it are different. As far as parameters, he talked about they have great insight to parameters. The examples the guy asked were like, Force Wall Tassadar being able to compete with Archon Tassadar, skill shot blocking, body blocking, is all that stuff going to be taken into account? He said, great insight into what parameters are used, but they're not going to let or go on to that level of detail externally, which is probably
makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. But
yeah, that makes sense.
With the way he described it last week, like I'm super stoked for this, that they're not necessarily even telling it what to look at. It's going to be a ever growing and learning system.
Yeah,
which is really
it's a
cool.
machine learning system, and so they will define some parameters, but they won't necessarily define values. Values will actually be defined by the system learning the averages and what an average player of that skill level should be achieving, on average. average.
Yeah. As far as to maining a few heroes or being flexible and kind of draft and banning being taken into account, he wanted to reiterate that the most important thing here is still winning the game. That's not changing. So in some games, that's going to mean sticking to heroes you know really well. In other games, that's going to require you to be a little bit more flexible. So it's just going to vary from game to game there. And, that ties into the drafting. What does your team need? What's been banned? What's been picked? In the end, playing games it's going to average itself out there, and it'll be fine. It'll all be fine.
Yeah.
But
they do there. I mean, he actually answers a ton of stuff all through this thread, and we'll have the thread linked in the show notes so you can see it. He did say we have more than enough data on all existing heroes. For new heroes or major reworks, the performance-based adjustments will basically be disabled until enough data exists.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool too. So that you're not having some wonky thing because the first 1,000 people that played the game did incredibly well and made some like unreachable average level for you to get. And then I think one of the really interesting things he talks about is we won't have visible MMR for this update, but I do still want to do it in the future, which is really interesting because up until now, I guess, it seems like they were kind of opposed to it. And so people brought up Kamikaze, one of the users who brought up, was just saying, actual visible MMR can cause problems and leads to self-inflicted frustration and anxiety, like worrying over every MMR point lost or gained during a match. By definition, it's relative and obeying an order. I can immediately tell whether my MMR is higher than that of another player or vice versa. This can lead to acts of condescension towards players with lower MMR in one's games. And then Travis said, I agree with that, which is part of why visible MMR hasn't been a big priority to us. But currently, rank is the only visible indicator of skill. This forces us to link rank to MMR so they don't diverge too much, because players get upset when they see people of different ranks in their games, even if they do actually have the same skill. That's not ideal and leads to oddities with matchmaking when rank and MMR do diverge. And then even now, we don't show MMR. Players have created other sources to approximate their MMR, like HOTS logs. The information isn't very accurate, which is a really interesting statement. But being the only source of knowledge, it gets cited frequently when players feel that there are issues with matchmaking. There's two issues here. First, it gives a false impression that matchmaking is poor for some players. And second, it makes it harder to understand when there are actually issues with matchmaking, since the real issues can get buried. Effectively, for players that really care about MMR, we already have most of the downsides associated with visible MMR without having the upsides of it being accurate.
Yeah.
And so just kind of going back around to that comment where he says the information isn't very accurate, I think this gives even more weight to an actual API being an extremely needed thing for the community. And I think that was one of my few like really big disappointments of BlizzCon, because at last BlizzCon they basically walked out and said the API is coming, And then there was nothing about it this BlizzCon. And when asked about it, it was said that it's not coming soon. And so I think for me, that was a really big letdown, because as of right now, we only have these community, sites or whatever to judge this by. And when a Blizzard developer comes out and says that information isn't very accurate, now we know there's a big divergence between what Blizzard is seeing and what we're seeing. And so it feels like getting everybody on the same page, while it won't stop arguments, will at least give context around those arguments, and then you can kind of go from there. But right now, it's very hard for us to argue something when we have admittedly inaccurate data. And so it becomes very hard for the player base to give good feedback when they say, oh man, let's just say, for example, Samuro, he's super overpowered. And Blizzard says, well, internally, he's actually looking pretty good. And so it makes those kind of discussions really hard.
Yeah. And this is because I can see the downsides of it for sure, 100%. But this is the way I'm going to try to look at it going into it. And they've been talking about doing this potentially for a while now. But there's going to be games where you're going to have people at lower MMR on your team. And sure, that can be frustrating. There's also going to be games where you're the lowest MMR on your team. And that's going to be frustrating for the other people. What this will do, though, is kind of help you see who's potentially a little bit of the stronger players on your team going into the game, that you can kind of, I don't want to use the term babysit here, but kind of pay more attention to, as far as rotating to help their lane, pinging more often to help them avoid ganks, peeling for them. So really, the only downfall I see to it is being frustrated and now blaming a loss or bad game because you had low MMR people on there. But really, this should give you more information to better help your team in the game and support each other.
Yeah, that's the hope. And like he was saying, people already approximate that a little bit anyways.
Yes.
Through these external sites. So they're not losing a whole lot by showing that. They're just hoping to add in the positives of that, even though they know there are some negatives attached to it too. But some of those negatives are really already going on.
Yeah. And there will always be negatives when it comes to ranked play and the internet. It's fun.
Yep.
There was an article here by Kotaku. Kotaku.
Hey, Kotaku.
Why did that sound weird when I said it? I don't know.
You got it.
But in regards to the video short that we saw for Hanzo and Alexstrasza, they talked to Alan DeBeery here, and it kind of went through, talked about how they came to Alexstrasza's size in game in her dragon form, when in reality, she would be as big as half the map, and kind of, she's big in the video, why she's small in the game, things like that. But the cool thing here, and you may have noticed this if you did watch the video, after Alexstrasza and Hanzo have their fight, it kind of goes into a little conversation. It shows like the vast environment with these portals coming through into the different, the Nexus and stuff. And Alan DeBeery goes on to talk about how, they're wanting to get more into, what is the Nexus? How are heroes coming here? What does it mean? Maybe there'll be characters that are already in the Nexus that aren't from other Blizzard titles. So to kind of just build up some story and potential lore here for Heroes of the Storm, just to have fun with it. I think it could be really cool. But like I said, potential heroes that are in the Nexus, not from Blizzard games, being introduced for story and potentially as heroes, I think could be very interesting.
How cool could that be for a designer?
Yeah.
when from a hero's perspective, from just a heroes team perspective, they come to you and like, okay, well, you can use Overwatch, you can use Warcraft, you can use Hearthstone, you can use StarCraft, you can use what other thing did I not name yet?
Diablo.
Diablo. You can use Diablo for all the characters, but you can make up whatever the crap you want too.
Yeah, that's really, because as amazing as it would be.
Okay.
As amazing as it would be to create characters on all these, or heroes on all these characters that we know and love, there are limitations to that, and kind of guidelines that they have to stick to. Whereas with this, it's total freedom, and maybe not necessarily total freedom. Like, they're not going to start making shorts and throw a character into the story just because somebody came up with this cool idea for a kit. They're not going to force that character into the story, but at least being able to introduce somebody that's from the Nexus and kind of build around that, which is really neat. And plus, they always do killer story stuff, and there's hasn't been anything with that in Heroes besides, oh, hello, I'm Uther. Welcome to the Nexus.
I think this game is just ripe for PvE type story content. I mean, you look at Overwatch, and Overwatch is a multiplayer game, but it has an incredible story around it. And they have these really incredible cinematics that they've been doing on a per character basis. And we've started to see maybe a little bit of that come out in these last few hero cinematics. They had the Varian Ragnaros one. They had the 2.0 launch one with Diablo, Genji, and Diva. And then they had this latest one at BlizzCon with Hanzo and Alexstrasza. I love those cinematics, by the way. I want more. Mm-hmm. Please, Heroes team, just go to the cinematics team and be like, make us all the hero cinematics. just make us all the hero cinematics. I'm sure you have nothing else going on right now.
They're easy to make. They don't take any time. You guys have done, I don't know, we'll say 10. You got 60 more to go, 62.
Yeah, no biggie. But I mean, I think especially, at least from the impression I got, is the way the hero cinematics are made. It is a much more streamlined, easier way to make cinematics than something like the Warcraft cinematic, which is like the hyper realistic. Mm-hmm. Because you can definitely tell the cinematic technology between the Warcraft one and the Heroes one is different.
Yeah.
And so if it is indeed easier, and I don't know if it is or not, but I got the impression of that last BlizzCon, that it was a new type of cinematics technology where it's a little easier to work with, then I would love to see Overwatch type short story cinematics come out of the Nexus as they start doing a little more of this PvE stuff. We've already got hints of a PvE brawl that's coming. And so just like Overwatch, now maybe start introducing these cinematic, 4 to 7 minute little cinematic things as events roll out. Like they had the Diablo event. How cool would it be, like a Warcraft event, and then you come up with a cool story type cinematic that comes with that Warcraft event.
Yeah.
Or that next Diablo event, or that next StarCraft event, or the next Nexus event that introduces some really cool new type stuff in a cinematic. And so that's what I'm hoping to see in this next year or two, is them to develop more of this lore, develop the world, and then develop kind of what the Overwatch team is doing with shorts, but with all these characters from all these universes getting to interact together in a story of some sort.
Yeah. And this is something I didn't even know I wanted until this came up, because when Heroes was created,
but it makes so much sense, right?
Well, when Heroes was created, like there was no story as why the heck all these characters from different universes are coming. It's like, no, it's happening because we want to make this game and it's cool. So, which is a double-edged sword, because that makes it difficult. I don't want them to try too hard to where it's like corny if they come up with this story of like, what is the Nexus and what happened to cause all these universes to collide? It could get corny really quick, but if anyone can make it cool and interesting when it wasn't planned from the beginning, and maybe it was planned from the beginning, who knows? It's Blizzard that can do it. So,
yeah, no, I'm very excited to see them perhaps beef up their story element. If there anything, like I said, that showed us Overwatch, you can do story in a multiplayer game.
Yes.
And this is the biggest sandbox of any of the Blizzard games. And so that just, I think, gives you unlimited potential, even more so.
All right, so Alexstrasza in the game, patch came out, and we got to play her a little bit yesterday, and not a huge patch coming with her. So we have her, the new ranked battleground rotation, the talent tier advantage call outs for the UI, which is cool. Can we? And I actually haven't tested. Is there a like clickable thing to warn your team?
I don't
ping?
think so. I think what is in so far is just the automatic version of it.
Yeah, I hope they still add it in to where you can ping it, because I was a little worried last week of like, oh, it's giving too much information. It's, telling the other team not to fight you. But really, it's very subtle. It doesn't make like a noise, a loud noise. It does make a little noise, and it's just a chat thing there. But if you're in the heat of the moment or something, it can be easy to miss. So I definitely still want the option to be able to ping, like if your team's rotating to a fight, ping that sucker to let them know you're down a talent tier advantage. But overall, it's a cool implementation to the game, as well as the Lily rework here. But before we talk about Lily, let's talk about first impressions with Alexstrasza, or at least first impressions since she's live, because we've been playing her for a little over a week now. TBK, we'll start with you. What are you thinking? What kind of build are you leaning towards versus like the Q or E? What's your thoughts?
Sure. I think she's got a ton of potential. Also, yeah, Dwagon. She's got a ton of potential, and I think she has probably one of the best design kits and talent trees we've seen so far, to be completely honest. I think she has 3 very distinct, very viable builds with, a few options thrown in here and there to mix things up. What I've kind of seen so far is Q build is really good if I'm solo supporting, because but she's a hard solo support unless you have a good front line, because she's extremely diveable.
Yeah,
because she has nothing, like literally nothing to get away, unless you got that ult up. You picked your flying ult up, and you've got that ready to go. But otherwise, she's extremely diveable, so she needs a decent front line for her to be viable as a solo support. I do think she's viable as a solo support, though, especially if you Q build. She's got a really good W build as well. I don't think a lot of people are playing around with it much, and that's because I think there's a few things with it. One, people don't know how to play around it yet, and that makes it hard because unlike a lot of abilities, it's not just team dependent and it's not just Alexstrasza dependent. It's dependent on both of those factors. So the Alexstrasza has to lay it down in a good position, and the team can take advantage of, and then the team actually has to actively take advantage of it. And so it makes it a very hard build to go for uncoordinated team play, but there's a lot of actually very solid talents for that W, but you're just not going to get a lot of value out of it unless you are more coordinated. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves as people understand it more. I do kind of feel after playing her that the proc time of the W is too long, because 3 seconds in Heroes time is a freaking eternity. And it's extremely hard to position it especially aggressively when you're trying to heal people while fights are going on and stuff, because fights move or can move around a lot, and so that long of a delay with that small of a circle and that long of a cooldown can definitely be detrimental to the play style in general to get those heals off. So I wouldn't mind seeing that at like maybe 2.5 seconds. And then the other thing with it is it's a bit confusing. And I know I actually mentioned this to some of the devs I ran into at BlizzCon. When you stand in the circle, you get the indicator basically the health regen indicator goes up on you. And it's very misleading because you're not actually regenerating anything. It's just showing the amount of health you're going to get when the heal proc goes off. And so I would like to see, and there's a few other effects like that in the game, Dahaka's adaptation being the biggest one, where it's not actually a health regen, it's a buildup of what you're going to get after a certain amount of time. I wouldn't mind seeing that changed from a UI perspective to a different indicator, like something like a yellow bar or something like that to show, hey, this is the health you're going to get, but it's not regenning, you don't have it yet type thing. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit, a clarification, a little extra on that. And then she does have a really good E build as well. Mm-hmm. And I've been taking that when I'm in a double support situation because it still allows you to throw out some heals with your Q and W, but it also allows you to self-sustain really well with the E. The slow is really strong. And that's basically your dragon build, right? Is that once you get that quest done, and you can get it done pretty stinking fast. Yeah. Depending on the map and the lane composition. Like we were doing a BOE game the other day. I had it done in a little over 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like it was that quick just because of how the people worked. And it doesn't do much damage, honestly. Like the biggest part of it is the slow. Even when you're getting the extra damage of it, it doesn't do a whole lot. So people don't actively avoid it as much as they probably should when you're doing that stacking quest. So that can actually be a really big advantage right now. But it's a fun build. It gets you into dragon form more often, and the dragon is actually very strong, although it is a little misleading because you don't become a tank when you go into dragon mode. So you have to be really careful about that. You're still a support. You do get some extra health, but you don't get any extra armor or anything. So you still have to be careful, but you get an extremely long range of auto attack, which is really cool. You get some extras for your Q and W, and you get the little knockback, which is really cool too. So again, E-build is really great, and since we're seeing double support a lot, it seems to be the build of choice. Mm-hmm. Both of her heroics are really good. Even though the heal one I think is really good, I think it's going to get passed over a lot in favor of the flight one.
Yeah, Cleansing Flame.
Because it's a get out of jail free card in a lot of ways. It damages and heals, and that can mean AoE. You have to be really careful with it, especially if you're solo healing, because it does take you out of the fight a lot. And then you have the landing, and that takes you out a little bit too. So you have to make sure you're in a spot where you can get some good heals off with the drops and then not be needed immediately when you land to try to heal again. Because I ran into that a few times, but it is a super fun ult, and I love her.
It is. And plus on top of it, it's an instant cast if you are in dragon form. Yep. Which is super helpful. I honestly, so even with that being, talking about that being kind of the double support build, in the games that I've played, the healing numbers have been extremely comparable on other people, like not just my play, when they go Q build and E build. So I'm interested to see what will end up being on top for even solo, just because the CC is so nice. And the self-sustain.
It is very good. It is very good. We don't have a lot of information about her yet.
Yeah.
From a a win rate perspective, apparently there was a hot logs error and the Alexstrasza logs weren't parsing, but she's showing up pretty low so far, and I think she'll raise up. I think she's at like 41% right now. But I think she's going to have a learning curve, and it's going to take her a little bit to raise up, although I don't know how high she'll end up going.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going to be calling the E build the Flame Buffet build because there's so many flames. And as you mentioned, it's super easy to get that up. I wonder if that's something they'll have to tune, or if it's something people will get used to, like, oh, no, I need to avoid those. Because like you said, it doesn't do a lot of damage. But it feels like if you hit somebody with one, you can miss one and then them still be on fire to hit them again, which I don't think should be a thing.
I think you've got a freebie.
Yes. Which is a little too long in my opinion. My same sentiments on her W. I think 3 seconds is just too much. That's supposed to be her self-sustain, but I feel like even if I'm running and I cast that at full distance away from me, I can run through it without getting the heal. And I don't know how many times I've thrown that down and, as a retreating thing, and not just me, but even like team members. It's like, it's okay. You don't have to get the heal. Like if you're running past it, keep running. Because so many times people have turned around and be like, oh, nope, I need to grab that real quick. Then bam, they're dead. The visibility, as far as it looking like a heal over time, I agree with on her. Dahaka, it's not that big of a deal because...
I'm just saying if they do change the effect, you might as well standardize it across all the type of heroes that use have that type of effect.
Dahaka is going to get the healing unless he dies, which is the same for like a regular heal over time. This is misleading to where you are not getting that healing unless you are in that when it goes off, which there's no reason to really indicate whether, the amount of healing they're going to get, because it's just a burst heal. So it doesn't make sense to me in that way. But yeah, she's super fun. The thing I was going to talk about pre-show, but I was like, oh no, I'll save it for the show, is she feels really weird to me. Not in gameplay. She feels great in gameplay. But normally, I'm not an amazing player, but I do think I'm pretty good at when new heroes come out, figuring out builds for them and kind of getting and learning them pretty quickly. Her, I'm really kind of struggling with. I'm not great with her, and it's not like, oh, she feels bad, I'm not great with her, or oh, she's super high skill cap. I do think she has a higher skill cap, but the placements of her W is something I think is going to take people a while to figure out what's best.
For sure.
Because it's like, do you throw it in the team fight to keep your melee members up? Do you throw it kind of halfway back so they can retreat to get to it, or do you keep it in the back line? Like where is the place to put it? And it changes with every situation. And that's where most of her heal comes from, not the Q. The Q is a good heal, but if you want the high healing numbers, you need to be really good with your W, and I am not.
Well, your team has to be good.
That's also true. Too. That is also true.
Like I said, it's on both sets of players to make that W work, which is potentially why maybe the issue just fixes itself in a few weeks once people get used to it, or maybe they need to make the cooldown a little lower or make the circle a little bigger or something.
Yeah. Now Lily. So I know you played a little bit of Lily yesterday. I just played Alexstrasza. I played Varian too. But
of course, I mean, why wouldn't he? He has two blades.
He does. What is your opinions on the Lily change? How did she feel?
I think she feels really good. She's got some really cool new spell effect indicators, which is nice. The fast feet trait being kind of built in instead of a level 20 is actually really cool. She's got this really neat kind of into battle, out of battle type of play style now, because you want to get poked a little bit. You want to take a little bit of damage to activate that trait to get your cooldowns going faster so that you can heal more, throw out more of your little dragons and blinding winds and whatnot. So she's got that. She also has a really interesting cleanse. too. And I actually talked to one of the devs about it, because I was just like, I thought you were getting rid of cleanse, and they're like, well, cleanse is kind of interesting, but we liked the trade-off for this one. So this cleanse actually gives a heal and does the 1 second cleanse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it, the range on it is super short. So it actually requires Lily to go pretty far in to get the cleanse off, which I thought was kind of an interesting trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
And plays a little more to where they're trying to go with the whole get in and poke a little bit, take a little bit of damage, and then get out again and cast more spells and whatnot to try and keep that trade up.
Okay.
So I'm enjoying it so far. I think with some of the changes, it makes her healing a little more predictable than it used to be, which is kind of nice. And you've got a really nice clear indicator of who is going to get healed, where it was just the little leaf before, but now it's like this big rotating ring around whoever is receiving the heal. So I like it. I enjoyed her before, but it's a fun play style. I'm a big fan of the rework.
Yeah, and it's also the whole balance between taking damage and staying back to heal the front line. It's going to be interesting to see if people adapt to that and make it kind of a goal to not attack Lily at some points.
Sure.
So, which is a cool
she's
thing.
Very much a lane bully now, too.
Well, it's a cool thing for a support, because right now it's like, kill the supports first, and obviously, if she's in a diveable spot, absolutely kill her. But it's not like you're going to be poking back at her to try and poke her down to get her back out of the fight, because she wants that poke. So
yeah,
that's a really interesting aspect as far as playing against her that I think is cool.
Yeah, and she oh man, I just lost my thought. Oh no, she's fun. Crap, I hate when that happens.
Hashtag.
I'll just randomly shout it out probably at some point, because it always happens.
Yeah.
You just think of it in the middle of another thought at some other point. But yeah, I think they did a really good job. Oh, there we go. CC destroys her, absolutely destroys her. So that's going to be part of the new play style, I think, because you have to get in closer. You're going to have to be really, really careful to watch other heroes that have that type of CC, because you can get caught and destroyed very quickly. Okay. I found that out in one game. There was an Uther, and it was not a fun day for me. Not a fun game.
How did her jugs feel?
I actually, oh my gosh. Her jug of 1,000 cups, ultimate heroic, Greg?
Yes, that's
that
what I
meant. I actually really like it. It gives you a lot more control over it, or a lot more so than before, just because you can actually use it to top people off a little bit, cancel it, and then it's only 20-30 second cooldown, or get a bunch of healing off and just let it go the entire duration and get a ton of healing off, but then have the longer cooldown. So I like the fact that it just gives you more control over how you want to use it. And if you want to just use it as, okay, we're a little low right now, let's top off real fast before the team fight, and then 10 or 15 seconds into poking the objective or whatever, it'll be back up again.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I'm excited to get in and try it out, because I mentioned before, Lily was like my first main. I guess I don't remember if it was her and Azebo. I'm pretty sure it was Lily. It was my first main back when the game came out, or not when it came out, back when it was in alpha still. But yeah, exciting changes there, and kind of one of our smaller patches we've had in a little while, which is kind of nice. Nice.
I am actually super happy about this. After all the craziness and all the pushes, it was nice just getting something a little smaller.
Yep.
Especially considering that we will probably be getting one of the, if not the biggest patch in the game's history in December.
Yes.
I'm just calling that right now. This is my hypothesis that it is going to easily be in the top 3.
Oh yeah.
And potentially the number 1 biggest patch with the most changes. Yeah. Because we know that there's 4 stealth reworks coming into it. We know that Hanzo's coming into it. We know there's a ton of lane changes and such. And then on top of that, my guess is we're going to see a lot of tweaks to other heroes, specialists particularly, because of the lane changes.
Yeah.
I think it'll be huge.
Yeah, it's weird because we've been not really complaining but worried about the big patch changes, but I am super excited for that one just because it's end of a season or end of an HGC season, and I think it's good for them to kind of take a step back. What worked this year? What didn't work? What changes do we need to make? And I think that's really good to do on a annual level.
This is exactly. If they're gonna make big changes, this is the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So TBK, you were wanting to discuss this week some multi-class stuff.
I was.
What's going on there?
So this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while because I honestly kind of expected to get another multi-class hero at BlizzCon, and we didn't, which was pretty interesting to me because we've got one multi-class hero in the game right now, and it's Varian. They added a ton of UI stuff for multi-class specifically, and we haven't seen nor heard of any other multi-class now for over a year. And so I wanted to kind of go back and revisit, and I actually wrote a big blog post on Heroes Hearth about this a few months ago. What's the multi-class issue right now? Why aren't we seeing it? What could we potentially see coming forward? And I think probably the biggest thing, how do we fix quick match to work better with multi-class heroes? Because I think at the end of the day, a lot of the issues, there are some design issues, of course, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the issues are quick match fixable and not something that we need to say, okay, Varian doesn't work very well in quick match. Let's not make any more multi-class heroes because it won't work in quick match. I think that's the wrong approach to take. I think we should say, how do we make quick match, keep quick match as it is, or the core of quick match as it is, but allow multi-class heroes because we don't want to squelch creativity for hero design.
That's so. Speaking of kind of disappointments at BlizzCon, while I wasn't really expecting this, it's kind of one of my disappointments that they didn't talk about. And I know they've heard feedback on quick match and as far as queuing in quick match and several ideas that the community has had when it comes to quick match. And they really just have said nothing about quick match, period, besides the whole, we're making, Tyranda's not going to, we're not going to consider her a support hero when you go into quick match, which I think the most popular idea, or maybe a combination of the two, would be like, one, selecting what role you want to queue up as, and two, being able to queue up as multiple heroes. Yeah. I don't know if that's like a huge system update they would have to make to make that work, being able to queue up as multiple people. But let's talk about that part of it real fast, right? Because that is a piece of the fix for quick match in relation to multi-class heroes, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like if you allowed players to queue up in a quick match with let's just say, we're not going to limit you. We're going to say you can queue up from anywhere from 1 to 3 characters. You can pick 1 to 3. You don't have to pick 3, but you have the ability to. 1 to 3 characters. This would automatically give the matchmaker a lot more flexibility to form teams because it would have many times have double or triple the number of heroes you could work with, right? Yep.
And because of this, you would theoretically be able to add more rules around comps, especially involving multi-class heroes in this particular instance, to allow for more player choice in their multi-class role instead of locking them into certain types. So let's just say, for Varian's example, if a player queued as Varian, and we had the system where players are picking anywhere from 1 to 3, in theory, the matchmaker is going to have a lot more heroes or roles to work with. Because let's say person A queued as Diablo and Brightwing and an assassin or something. The matchmaker sees this other person queues as Varian and goes, okay, I see Varian as a multi-class. That means that Varian can go tank or damage. I'm going to pair this Varian with this person who picked Diablo, Brightwing, Vala in their option, and make this person Diablo and put this Diablo and this Varian on the same team. Now, the quick match team automatically has a Diablo tank. The person can then choose if they want to go Varian tank, because 2 warriors is not a bad thing, and it has proven to be a very good thing in a lot of cases. But it gives that Varian player then a little more freedom of choice to say, okay, I do want to play taunt. I'm going to do that, and I'm still going to be all helpful for my team to be able to do it. Or you can say, I'm going to go Colossus Smash. I'm going to go Twin Blades, since I see I already have a tank.
Yeah, that works in conjunction with fixing like the matchmaking for quick match as a whole, which I would love to see them fix the matchmaking for quick match. But if it's easier, and I actually think this would work a little bit better with Varian in this case, instead of, oh, he's multi-class, so now we're just going to pair him with a double warrior just in case. For multi-class heroes, when they come out, when you queue up, select which role you want to queue as.
Yeah, and that's
oh, you're multi-class? What do you want to do? Tank?
Yeah, and that's my
assassin.
second, and that's basically the second part of the article I wrote, is allow players to pick their multi-class role. Mm-hmm. And so it depends how they do it. And you could easily make a character that you could multi-class from level 1, or you could stick with you multi-class at 10, right? But it doesn't seem like a super far-fetched idea to jump into quick match, and for the multi-class heroes, when you select them, you have the ability to say, okay, I'm queuing as Twin Blade Varian, and you click that. Then you can pick all your talents as you want when you get in game, but at level 10, the system automatically selects Twin Blades for you as soon as you hit level 10. Mm-hmm. And you knew it going into it, and then now the matchmaker can build a comp around that, knowing that you're going to pick it, instead of you just saying you're going to do it and then cheat the matchmaker and pick something else, right? You'd have to have some sort of auto pick lock-in to do that, but I don't think that would be a bad thing either.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say about it is, the reasons I want this fixed for quick match is not because I want them to be concentrating on quick match to make that the best matchmaking possible, because it's not. It's quick match. It's supposed to be quick. But, people talk about, when new heroes come out, you want to test them out. If you go into unranked draft or ranked, the chances of you getting them are very low. And so you go into quick match and queue as them. But to really try out a hero and get used to them, see what they're capable of, you can't really do that in quick match because everything is so wacky. You can't get a feel for how they actually work, where their positioning is going to be, how careful you need to be. So that's why I want these fixes. And if it's a huge deal, like I said, to go in as far as systems and make it where you can queue as 3 characters, fine, don't do that. If it's a smaller deal for, multi-class characters, to make it go in and go, okay, what role do you want to play? I would be fine with just that. That would at least help on multi-class heroes. But I just want to be able to test new heroes comfortably against comparable comps and not just weird, wonky things.
Sure. And this is only a fix you'd really need to make for quick match, right? Because in a draft scenario, you're most likely going to be drafting those heroes, those multi-class heroes, based around the role you need, right? You're drafting them with a certain thing in mind. So that anything other than quick match, this really doesn't even matter for. But having that option for quick match seems to me like it'd be an easy out, I guess, for Blizzard to quote balance the heroes and not destroy the matchmaker and still allow people to play the version of the multi-class that they want to play.
Yeah, because right now, I want to practice Twin Blade Varian, go in, which I would do at this point anyways, because it's probably better than Taunt. But TBK was right. But before it was, hey guys, I'm gonna practice Twin Blade Varian. Oh, thanks for towing the game, you dillweed, freaking jerk.
That's what they say to me every time. You dillweed.
You dingus. So just be nice to not have that,
Yeah, it would. So yeah, that's from a matchmaker perspective. That's a really good conversation, and I think there's a lot of what, at least it feels like, very easy ways to fix some of the issues that they're having right now, right?
Yeah.
From a multi-class perspective, I'm a huge fan of just the idea of a multi-class hero because it's something that allows me to adapt much more in-game. And, talking about the system we just talked about, from a quick match perspective, it's more, I can play this hero the play style I want to play. From an unranked or Hero League or something perspective, it's more, I can adapt to the situations as they happen. Not that you wouldn't be able to if your multi-class was selected in quick match. It would just be a little more limited, right? But I really like a lot of the idea behind the design of Varian. There's some issues with his level 147 type talents, and I think that's just the way he was designed, as kind of this underpowered hero with a ton of power built into 10. I think you could very much create a multi-class that was had a little more smoother of a power curve than Varian does, and that would help out his early talents. But there's a lot of stuff you could do with it, right? And there's a lot of heroes that we've talked about that could make very interesting multi-classes. Anduin being one example as a priest, because there's multiple types of priests. We don't have any of that in game yet. My personal guess, and this is Blizzard has done a really good job of catering to me. At least I like to think so, because I went on for Ragnaros for 6 months, and then they put Ragnaros in game for BlizzCon, and then I went on about dragons for over 6 months, and then they put a dragon in at BlizzCon. So now I was like, crap, I'm out of stuff.
What's next year's BlizzCon?
Yeah, I need a new thing to harp on, and so it is a multi-class druid.
Yeah.
Specifically, I would like to see a multi-class feral druid or a multi-class like bear, kitty, potentially tree.
Yeah, it'd be
right
amazing to have all 3 roles covered at least.
Yeah, no, it would be a very, very, or it has at least the potential, right, to be an extremely cool kit that you could do from a multi-class perspective.
Here, idea off the top of the head, how you control that if it's still the level 10 thing. Oh, you don't want to support that can't heal, period, through level 10. At least, give him a couple of healing abilities, maybe even just one healing ability, but until 10, it's only self-cast. And then if you go the druid thing, it opens that up to be able to cast on other characters as well as whatever else is going on.
Sure.
Bam.
Or that's potentially a hero that a level 1 multi-class could potentially work on as well, which could be kind of interesting. You'd have to come up with some really good gameplay hooks, because you don't want to necessarily make 3 full characters in one.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's just a lot of opportunity cost. And that's a lot of development, because you'd basically be making 3 heroes. Which is why the level 10 option works really well. You just have to come up with a really good base kit. But there's a lot of other ideas you could do with multi-class that I've kind of discussed before. I wouldn't mind seeing a multi-class where at level 10, potentially you pick it and it alters your basic abilities somewhat based on what you pick. You could also do something like after you pick your level 10, now the level 13, 16, 20 talent trees are modified depending on what you picked, which could also be kind of interesting. I really like Varian's latter half of the talent trees because they give a lot of really cool options, like the extra damage done on charge, the shield breaker, or the mortal strike, the 3 different types of banners, different things at level 20. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. I actually made a little kit just for funds, a holy shadow priest, right? Where you have like penance, renewal, and shadow word pain. And then depending on if you went shadow form or holy form, like in shadow form, renewal has something slightly different. Or if you pick shadow form, your healing spell can now be one of your healing spells can now be cast on an enemy to do damage and still be used to heal an ally, but the heal amount for the ally is reduced because you're a shadow priest, not a holy priest. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff I think you could do with that to differentiate these things more on the fly and allow you to have that generic class you need up until level 10 and then specialize depending on what you want to do.
Yeah. I think it's neat, and hopefully we see a new multi-class before too long, and we'll just kind of have to see what they do, and hopefully something to help out.
They've got to be
quick match
thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
They've got to be thinking about it. I mean, I can't imagine that they put in all the hooks, all the stuff for it, and are only gonna ever do one multi-class, right? I'm sure that the reaction and the issues with Varian probably caused them to pause and take a step back, and say, okay, what can we do? Because Varian still has issues, not just with matchmaking, but with talent tree. Like his level 4 especially being a really big issue because 95% of the time one talent is taken.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a balance between doing something cool at 10 but making sure the hero is not gimped too much between levels 1 and 10 to actually, because that's why a lot of times Varian didn't see play for as long as he did, especially at a competitive level until the taunt was buffed up really, really far, is that his earlier levels were very weak. And early levels in pro games can be very impactful on a game and getting ahead. So, and not even in pro games, even in normal games too, it can have an effect. So making sure that balance is there to allow a little bit of a power spike, but not put too much of the power spike in the level 10 is definitely a balance thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the HGC may be over for the season, but we have some stuff going on in the off season, as well as already some roster changes here. So let's go ahead and hop on into that. TBK, what do we got, gameplay-wise? We might not be able to watch HGC, but we have some other stuff to watch.
We do. The Nexus games are going on right now, and it's been pretty cool. This is the European side where they pulled a bunch of the highest level, like Hero League players from the different countries and are putting them on teams, and now it's a little bit like Overwatch League. Honestly, someone actually had a question about that last week, and this is a little bit of that, or like the Overwatch World Cup.
Yeah,
I
but
guess
just
might
for
be
Europe.
a little better example. Yeah, but just for Europe. So you've got like Spain, UK, Russia, just a bunch of different regions within Europe battling against each other. And because of, you know, the timing of it, I haven't been able to catch a lot of it because a lot of it is during work time, but it's going on for several days. And tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there will be games going on. So I highly recommend, especially if you're a European listener, go check that out. You can actually root for your home turf if you want to. And apparently there's been some really good games. Volskaya is allowed. I believe Junkrat is allowed too. So there's definitely going to be some really interesting comps and games. And I was able to watch a little bit of Volskaya, and it's fun to see that. It's actually really fun to see that at high level play.
Mm-hmm. And who is one of the people casting the Nexus games?
What a great segue, Gizmo. Bakery is casting along with Kendrick Swish, who we interviewed a few weeks ago, and Tetcher. And they are all casting on from location, all the games. And one of the reasons Bakery is casting is because in one of the biggest team announcements so far, Bakery has announced that he is stepping down, at least for this phase, from the Dignitas Heroes of the Storm team.
Bakery is such a cool person. And let me tell you one of my feel-good moments from BlizzCon. It's potentially a not feel-good moment, but I still choose to think of it as the feel-good way. So we interact with a lot of professional players and stuff, and you know we've had some on for the shows. But Bakery, I met him very briefly last BlizzCon. This time it was Wednesday, I think. I walked up to him just to say hi, introduce myself again. Went up and I went, "Hey, James, it's good to see you." I was like, He's like, "Wait, Gizmo?" I was like, "Yes, that's me." He's like, "I recognize the beard." I was like, "Oh, that felt pretty good." But then after I walked away from the conversation, I looked down and I had my jacket on that said Gizmo. So I didn't see him look down.
Well done.
But he may have. But if you did just remember my name from my jersey, well played, sir. Still made me feel good.
Yeah. So I bet he's been a really big staple in the Heroes community pretty much since the beginning. Mm-hmm. He's been around the scene a really long time, and he's been definitely the face of Dignitas. And so him stepping down is a pretty big deal. He said he wants to stay involved in Heroes. He wants to do content stuff. He wants to do casting. He's got a lot of ambitions. I don't know. Maybe he'll return to competitive. He talked about just kind of needing a break, which is completely understandable. Whenever you've been doing something for as long as he has, sometimes you just have to take a step back and refresh and recharge. And sometimes that means a phase of HGC. Sometimes that means a season, or maybe that just means I'm going to participate in just a different way. Mm-hmm. But that's definitely one of the biggest roster things to happen, as he is a fairly public face of Dignitas for sure, and in some ways Heroes in general.
Yeah,
right?
I'd say this is one of the biggest retirements, in quotes, since probably Dunk Train.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. There have been other roster changes, but I didn't want to really cover stuff yet until things settle more. There's some Roll20 stuff. There's some Team Freedom stuff. There's some Diamond Skin stuff. There's a lot of stuff, but I'm kind of waiting just to give it a full segment until the time period is passed, mm-hmm. so that we can kind of cover everything in one fell swoop and just give it to you a lot more compactly, instead of me running around trying to find all the individual team changes. So just rest assured, HGC people, that is coming. and we'll be covering that after
I think the
time frame.
23rd or something is
it's
whenever
coming up fairly
approvals end.
soon. Yeah, it's coming up fairly soon. So most likely first or second week of December.
Yeah.
We'll be covering the big list of roster changes and kind of talking about the effect that could potentially have going into the season, the next season, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Has he casted yet?
Yes.
Did he begin the stream with, "Hi, I'm James Baker"?
He did not.
Dang it.
I know how much you wanted.
I really wanted it. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, so there's going to be a lot to cover when that comes out as we prep for season 2, phase 1 of the HGC, which will be exciting.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they did a great job the first year, so I'm really excited to see what upgrades
for sure
they got for the second year. But speaking of that, unfortunately, it always seems like bad news comes with good. And there was an article put out just today from Dot Esports alleging that Niantic still owes its Heroes of the Storm players more than $50,000 in earnings. And this is just, it's again, super sucky that this still is happening in 2017, for goodness sake. But it's even suckier for these players who have put in all this time and effort and are owed this money and still haven't been paid. Like, I really, really hope that HGC in 2018 puts a lot more stipulation, because they said one of their big goals is that every single one of the major region teams will be sponsored in 2018. And so I really, really hope they do a good job of making sure that this type of crap can't happen.
It's one of those things. It's going to be tough while esports is growing. I think when, with Overwatch League getting ready to happen, having the potential to be a big boom for the esports, it'll be better whenever we have big name organizations involved. Because, and I don't want to pretend like I know anything about organizations, their type of income, anything like that. But it seems, because we've had this issue coming up so much, and with esports still being kind of in its infant stages, as far as the rest of the world, that we have a lot of people wanting to start organizations that may not have the finances to cover it yet if they don't do as well as they're hoping.
Sure. And that's a fine line to walk, right? Because you want new organizations to come in. You want orgs like Roll20 or Heroes Hearth, I guess, would be a really big example, because they went from content website to now they are a pro HGC team organization. And they, at least so far, seem to be doing it right in building that up first and making sure to take care of their players. But that's unfortunately not the story every time. And it takes a lot of business savvy to go into that, and hopefully much better contracts and lawyering than has gone into it before, because there are still just way too many examples of this happening. I mean, we were just talking about this a few months ago at the Playing Ducks.
Yep.
Owing their players, and the players dropping the team because of it. And so I really hope Blizzard themselves get a lot more involved with the organizations and make sure, like you said, not just bigger organizations jumping in, but Blizzard putting more criteria and safety nets and stuff around organizations that are sponsoring their teams.
And it sounded like they're taking a step towards that with the 2018 season a few weeks ago when we were talking about the changes for HGC, that each organization is going to have a representative that works directly with Blizzard. I imagine this would kind of be the area that would be involved in as well, which is good.
Yeah.
But We'll
sucky
keep,
thing.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
I really hope the best for them. I hope they can get their I hope they can get their money from the stuff, and that we won't hear stories like this next year, because this just kind of drags down esports as a whole when this type of thing happens, because it makes it seem it is, but it makes it seem far less professional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if esports wants to grow and compete with traditional sports, this cannot happen.
Because you don't hear about this in real sports. Like if you heard about this in like traditional sports, this would be very much outside of the norm. It would just be like, oh yeah, the Bulls didn't pay their players, and that would be a huge media uproar. It would be insane.
Yeah,
like that. But it's unfortunately much more norm in esports, and it shouldn't be.
It also makes me wonder what the contracts look like that people sign for esports in their organizations, because you would think if it was like traditional sports, when you're signing on for a team and stuff, it wouldn't be an issue. Because you'd be in a ton of trouble.
Yeah, but I guess
this happens so often. It seems like organizations just are like, meh.
Sure, and I mean, I think you have to kind of look at it from there's a lot of these players are pretty young.
Yep, exactly.
Honestly, and sometimes these esports organizations can prey upon that, and there's been a lot of push, especially in the last year, to try and get these pro players who are joining orgs newly, even orgs that have been around for a while, but to actually get representation from legitimate lawyers, or esports lawyers, or there's actually several of those now that are very good, but some sort of legal representation before they sign contracts to make sure they're taken care of.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that stems from these players are probably doing that on their own without that. And so they're maybe not reading the contract terms, or the contract terms take advantage of them because of that. And then you end up with really crappy situations like this.
Yeah. But again, we'll keep an eye on that and let y'all know when we hear more. But let's go ahead and move on to your community content shout out this week, TBK.
So this week it's from the Storm Legacy team called Nexus Draft House. And we've talked a few times about the issue, especially when it comes to drafting, with there not being enough, resources, information on how drafting works, or how drafting is supposed to work. And as we saw at the HGC, how important good drafting actually is, because otherwise it can put you in some really, really bad situations. And so this is a show, it's been going for like 40 some episodes, I think, now, that actually brings in some very knowledgeable people, and they go over drafts, like HGC drafts, or high level gameplay drafts, and break them down for you on the what's and the whys of why certain things are picked against another cop, why certain things are picked on a certain map, that type of thing. So it's one of the very few resources around that actually can give good drafting advice. So anytime there's those kind of resources, I want to highlight those, because they are sadly kind of few and far between.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. So this week we do have time to get caught up on some listener questions here. If you guys have any questions in the chat room, go ahead and shoot those out. We'll try and get to some of those as well. All right, so from our newest patron here, Stemmed Sheep Zord, we have a couple questions here, so we'll just kind of take these one by one. First up, do you think that Blizzard needs to redefine what HOTS wants to be? Is a mode like Quick Match, which is basically the Junkrat of modes, compatible with Hero League, the Grey Mane of modes?
Ooh, nice analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think so. I mean, the quick match is just supposed to. It's not supposed to be perfect match quality or anything like that. It's supposed to be able to get in there quick, and it is a mess right now, admittedly. But I don't think it necessarily means that they need to redefine what they want to be. I just think there needs to be some updates to help that, kind of what we discussed earlier, because they should work together. Quick match should work to help people that want to move to unranked and move to ranked. Being able to practice heroes as they come out and things like that, which it just can't right now. So, TBK?
Yeah, quick match is such a core part of what Heroes is. I mean, it's a very unique mode that lets you jump in and get exactly what you want, and play exactly what you want. Like you said, the rules around it and the matchmaking around it may need some help, but I think if you look at the statistics, and all we have to go on is last BlizzCon, but a sizable portion of the player base is quick match primarily. And so when you have that much of the player base in quick match, I don't think you can get rid of it. I think you can refine it, but I think it's definitely one of the what makes heroes type things.
Yeah. And then as kind of a follow-up question, what are your thoughts on what the original game was designed to be and compared to what the game currently is trying to be and do? Or do you think the two are compatible with each other? So this may potentially kind of just go back on what I just said, but I don't really think so. When Blizzard first announced this game, and I'm not talking about Blizzard All-Stars, I'm talking about when they announced Heroes of the Storm, it did kind of seem like they were announcing this to be a fun and friendly MOBA to jump into and just kind of have fun. I'm not sure they expected the esport that it is today to come out of it. Maybe they did, but it's kind of, I think it's kind of taken off and gotten more competitive than maybe they expected. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't know. DBK?
No, I completely agree. Because we have to remember, Heroes started as a mod. Like, that was originally what this game was kind of a Dota, League of Legends mod for StarCraft. And then it eventually evolved to be what it is and the uniqueness of what it is. And I think, I mean, they are definitely evolving the game from a gameplay and mechanics standpoint. I mean, we can see that with the upcoming changes to the towers, to the lanes, to the mercenaries, to the regen globes. They are very much trying to refine what the original gameplay was. But I think at the end of the day, it's still very much Heroes. It has a lot of stuff that is very core to it and very unique to it. And I think they probably have made some decisions in regards to it being an esport. And Heroes has kind of been a slow burn, right? It's just one of those games that it's not one of those, Blizzard releases it and boom, it just soars to the top, which admittedly for a Blizzard game is a little odd.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, and part of that is because it came into a very crowded marketplace. But it's been an incredibly good slow burn. And I think over the last 2 or 3 years, they've really learned a lot about what people want and about what makes a good MOBA and what is good MOBA mechanics and what's not, and what makes a good game. And so I think they've really taken that and they've refined it a lot. And I think the game right now is probably in the best state it's ever been from a gameplay standpoint, not necessarily from a matchmaking standpoint or whatever, but just from a pure gameplay standpoint. I feel like it's in the best place it's been so far. And it'll be interesting to see as these new changes come in, if that shifts or not, or which changes will stay, which will potentially even not get implemented, which will get changed during that testing implementation. But that's kind of why I like this game, is because it is an ever evolving game, and it's not necessarily just here it is stagnant type thing.
Yeah. And this next question kind of leads into that. So, does trying to have multiple style maps and different styles of paths to victory nullify certain heroes and create drafting mistakes for players, creating both animosity in veteran players towards beginning players? Not even getting into hero synergy, Stitches, Malfurion, or Tyrande as an example. So this is when we've had discussions on this, as far as, you know, the entry to this game is getting more difficult. And that's not an unusual thing with MOBAs. It's one of the reasons I didn't play League for a long time, because there were so many champions I had no idea what I was doing when I tried to get in there. It's one of the reasons Heroes was easier for me, and I think would continue to be easier for Blizzard fans, because you can kind of have an idea of what a hero is going to do without even playing them. You're just kind of looking at seeing who it is. It's an existing person that you know from the universes, and kind of have, you know, grasping what their kit will be like. But, you know, we are getting more heroes. It's getting harder to juggle. And then on top of that, the maps. And we have had the discussions of, you know, it's not, there's not a set meta of heroes because of the maps. It's going to change for maps. It makes it difficult. Yes, that's going to create animosity. More so in newer players that haven't figured out what heroes to play on what maps. But it's one of those tough things to balance. But I think it's one of the things that makes heroes.
Yeah. No, heroes, the maps are definitely one of the standout points of heroes, right? It adds so much more replay, but with every map you add that much more complexity, you add that much more learning curve. And it started out, like you said, when you start out with like 30 heroes and like 5 maps, the learning curve is there, but it's not crazy. And heroes, I think, started off with a really bad reputation of it's the baby MOBA. It's doesn't have the last hitting, it doesn't have the items, so it's so much more simple. But nothing could be further from the truth. I would argue in a lot of ways Heroes is far more complex than something like Dota or something like League, because of the maps. There's just so much complexity when you take a bunch of heroes and then you add in the talents and then you add in multiple maps on top of that. It's just a huge learning curve. And I think Blizzard has, especially for the past year or so, and will continue to until they do something about it, they're running into an information problem. And the information problem is that there is very, very few ways to learn so much stuff that is needed to play heroes well in game. Right now, most of that is either you just play tons and tons and tons of games until you've kind of seen everything and kind of get everything, or you watch a lot of pro stuff to try and be able to copy what they do or get tips from what they do. But Blizzard right now, in my opinion, has a huge problem of lack of learning information in game. And that's where I think a lot of the information needs to be. Mm-hmm. And there's just a huge lack of it right now. And so players come in and they're trying to learn this game, trying to learn all the complexities and then the heroes and stuff. And there's not a lot of resources for it. And so you see, from a quick match perspective, from a draft perspective for sure, people who just don't know what to do, like don't know what's going on and can't draft properly or can't play map objectives properly, don't know timings, that type of thing. And I know Blizzard is kind of working on bringing a little bit of that RNG back to kind of help that out and make things a little more predictable, which is good. That will help a lot just from an information standpoint. But that's just the start. They need to. I would like to see more tutorials. I would like to see more try mode type stuff where people are shown and can learn things within the game a lot more. I think a spectator mode in game would be huge for that, because then it's like, oh, I could spectate, these high level HGC players while they're playing to get tips or whatever, right? I could spectate my friend who's been playing this game a really long time. I don't know. Right now, a lot of information, if you want to learn stuff, you have to go to external sources. And there are some good sources, but like I said, drafting, there's not a lot of really good content type stuff available to learn drafting, to learn these maps inside and out, to learn heroes and interactions and stuff. So I think what I'm really hoping to see in the coming year or so is Blizzard putting a lot more emphasis on teaching people how to play what is admittedly becoming a more complex game because of extra heroes and maps.
Yeah. And I completely agree, and plead to Blizzard as the 2018 season comes up here to hope, hopefully have some more tutorials or videos or something to help new people coming into the game adapt better, because I would imagine that we have waves. And you can kind of predict the waves of when new heroes are going to come out, when they're going to do big marketing pushes. The last one was 2.0. The 2018 updates is going to be the next one.
Sure. And to their credit, we have seen more, at least some more learning type content. We have the core concept articles that have come out this year. Yeah, that's great. That's good. The Heroes Esports site has actually had a few really good articles with pro players about some of the new heroes or, things like that. That's great, but that's still all out of game content. We need to bring some of that learning process and stuff in game.
Yeah, because if you're a new player, you're not going to be going to the esports website or anything like that.
No,
that's for and even people that are interested in the game. There some don't follow the HGC or keep up on the patch notes, things like that. So, we don't have to over bloat the in-game learning, but having more would be nice, I think. All right. I don't, there's been chat going on. Didn't see if there were any questions. So if there are, shoot those there real quick, and we'll tell you where we can be reached. You can find us in-game, type /join space LOTS. You can also join our Discord at www.bit.ly/lotsdiscord. You can find us on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, all those things at Lords of the Storm. If you have any questions or feedback for us, you can email us at lordsofthestorm@outlook.com. And if you enjoy the show, you can leave us a 5-star iTunes or a positive Stitcher review. We do appreciate those. Helps make us more visible for people looking for a helpful Heroes podcast. As well, if you want to support the show, you can do so over at patreon.com/Lords of the Storm. We always do appreciate that, and that goes towards helping us make this show the best that it can be, provide you with content, things like that. You can also find us individually, myself at GizmoZord on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, all those things, as well as Convert to Raid Presents, the BattleNet News, Tuesdays at 10 p.m. Central. Multizord can be found at Multizord, and our sister Zord show for Overwatch, the Cavalry Show, is live Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. on twitch.tv/thecavalry show. And they're on Twitter at the same as well. TBK, where can you be found?
I can be found on Twitter at TBKZord and twitch.tv/TBKZord, where I usually stream Monday nights around 9 Central, and then wherever else I can find the time. I would love to get back into casting.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something I really miss doing, but time is always an issue.
That it is. I could agree with. But we want to give a special thanks to our patron producer, Ouroboros Sword, for helping support the show. We really do appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you guys next week with Alexstrasza, Hero of the Week. We'll go over her build. Until then, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Enough. I shall do no more.
All right.